What would you do if right after you achieved the pinnacle of your lifetime's ambitions, a massive outside event hit you that you had no control over that threatened to ruin the fulfillment of your dream? What am I talking about here? Well, my guest today is Doug Reitz, and his dream was to own a construction company. And just as he was executing and beginning the process of taking over the ownership of the construction company that he works at, Mark Wilson Construction, COVID hit. And that was a tremendously disruptive event for his organization. But by practicing openness with the people in the senior leadership roles, sharing openly the challenges that they were facing and committing to working through those, he was able to ward off the dangers that COVID presented and move through that challenge to a place of real thriving. That is just one of the topics that we're going to talk today with Doug Reitz, my guest. And he is the owner of Mark Wilson Construction Company and has over 30 years experience in construction. He's also the author of the book Build, a blueprint for constructing success in leadership and life. And we're going to talk about his leadership style, how he uses the listen, plan, build strategy to navigate disputes and difficulties smoothly. And also, we're going to dive into his mantra of be a builder in everything you do every single day. Great thing about Doug is that he has a very open and high-level perspective on how to be a leader of a construction company, and he's actually leading a construction company every single day. So you'll enjoy this conversation. You'll get a number of important insights. So let's dive right in and enjoy the conversation here with Doug. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Doug, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
Yeah. You've second time on the show. It's been a few years. Tell me what's been going on with you and with your company since we last chatted.
Well, a lot. We have had significant growth, and the purchase, we talked a little bit about the purchase of the company. I think last time I was on, the purchase is now complete. Mark is in retirement, and he is coming in to pick up rent checks, and he looks really happy with a big smile on his face.
So what's the ownership structure of your company now?
We are an S Corp, and I am the sole owner. And we have some great people that are coming up behind me in Joe and Cole doing a fantastic job on operations. And it's really letting me step back and have the vision for the company and not be in the day-to-day operations.
What's your long-term view for the ownership of the company? You think of passing it on to the next generation, or what's your thought there, or haven't you thought that through yet?
Actually, we've been talking about it the last couple of years because we know how long it takes.
Yeah.
Cole is really interested in purchasing the company. As we get into this, then over the next few years, that transition is going to start. And I'm still going to get to be involved, and they're going to handle the operations and then slowly turn over the company.
Okay. And so with that in mind, as you've moved into full ownership of the company, what surprised you about being an owner of a construction company that you hadn't anticipated?
Well, a lot of things surprised me because everything's more difficult than you think it's going to be. What has really happened over the last 4 years, I purchased the company right before COVID started.
Okay.
That's when the purchase started. And then I paid him off last year. Well, nothing is as predictable as it has been previous 20 years. Whether it's been materials, jobs pushing off, all those things, I was not expecting as an owner of the company to have to deal with so many things that I had never even thought would happen. Nobody would have thought that it would take so long to get things through the estate agencies. The manpower crunch, the great resignation really put a stress on architects, and they couldn't get things done as quickly as they had hoped. It seems like we're coming out of that, but as an owner, I was not expecting to have to do that, and I'd never experienced it before.
How did you manage yourself then Because, I don't know, but we all have a self-perception of ourselves, and maybe you step into the ownership role and there's a sense of pride and accomplishment and achievement, which is justifiable. But then, boom, here comes this thing that you've never dealt with before. And that might then bring in doubts or worries or anxiety. How do you manage yourself in the midst of that?
Doubts, worry, and anxiety were all of them. I mentioned Cole and Joe, Donette. I have a great core team, and we had been together for 20 years. So when all of these things hit, we were all stressed, but we could all talk about it. We had a great support system, and every one of us had hit a wall at some point and said, why are we doing this? We can't do this anymore. We all went through it. Just to be very, very transparent. For anybody who's going through things like that, realize you're going to hit a wall, expect you're going to hit a wall, have some people around you that will support you, that will say, hey, you know what, we can do this. And they're going to walk beside you and they will help get you through it. If you try to do it on your own, there's no way. A good friend of mine once gave me some advice and said, you need to have a personal board, like a personal board of directors, somebody that's outside of your organization, somebody that sees things from a different perspective, that will tell you the truth. If you're out of line or that you need confidence, they're there to support you. And I've got a great personal board.
What was the effect of having those open conversations amongst the senior leadership in terms of your ability then to project confidence to the rest of the company, perhaps even when you didn't feel confident?
The people that are with me now, it made us more confident by having those conversations, sharing everything that we were really feeling, because they would tell me when they thought I was out of line. And not many subordinates, right, of your team would tell the boss when they're out of line. When you can have people around you like that, they were more confident about now going to the team, the rest of the staff at the company, and saying, you know what, this is going to be hard, but we're going to be able to get through it. And here's why. Because we had talked about it so openly.
Interesting. So then as you were coming out of or through COVID, what did you learn through that has made you a better leader and then you've taken with you into the sort of the post-COVID world?
The biggest thing that we have learned as a team and I've learned as a leader is I can't control everything. Everything used to be so predictable. I thought I had everything under control. Being able to adapt and to shift, pivot, whatever you want to call it, has got to be the new quality of leaders these days, because so many things are unpredictable and I don't have control over things. So one of the reasons I wrote the book is the processes we had to implement to be more dynamic, to be more adaptable, is all about being a builder. Something is going to have to be built to get you through a challenge. And that's what I took away from COVID and all this unpredictability, is I'm not in control and I have to find a way to work through problems with other things controlling it. Would you describe yourself as someone who is inclined to adapt to things, or are you more, you like to set up something that works and then just keep working that? I like predictability. And as a person, I like predictability. Now, you go back to the experiences in my life, whether it was my dad coaching baseball or being the mascot at Fresno State, there was a lot of things that weren't predictable there and you just had to adapt. So I have learned to adapt. But my personality is I like things to be very structured, work through it, and we all know what's going to happen. And that was really difficult for me.
So how do you get yourself, was it just necessity that drove you out of that structured, predictable mindset into a sort of an innovative mindset?
Yep, it really was. And once that door opened, we had a strategist on board that helped us through that, thinking about the unpredictability. And it opened up my mind to where it didn't feel uncomfortable anymore. It was much more acceptable. Right. And I learned that I could do it.
So what was it that, because that's the thing, is for some people, it just feels uncomfortable. So what was it that helped you for that feeling to go away and you became more accepting of it?
I'll give you an actual example of something that happened. One of the local school districts has always passed a bond.
Right.
You know what's going to happen. They vote for it. You keep doing work. So we had our retreat the 6 months prior, and our strategist said, what if the bond doesn't pass? I go, dude, the bond's always passed. Don't worry about that. We got this. Okay, what if it doesn't? So we went through a whole program at our strategic planning meeting and said, what if something goes wrong on the other side?
Right.
Guess what? The bond didn't pass.
Right.
So we were already set up in a private market to be able to backfill. And that was the moment that I realized I have to start thinking of things on the what if side and planning for contingencies. Nothing is going to be as consistent as it was in the world.
So how do you do that? How do you go through what if scenarios and even allocate resources to that without taking your eye off the ball in terms of what's in front of you right now and what you need to take care of?
So what we are currently doing is we're going through a program with our company. And I know, Eric, you do this too. And if I could give a shout out to what you do and what some of the other people in this world, it really pulls you back because I am in the details all day, every day. So we take a time once a month to sit down and say, what could happen and where are we at? And we're using enterprise risk management right now and just getting into that. And that has stepped us back looking at risk that we never thought was a risk. So you don't have to be always in that 60,000 foot view, but to have somebody pull you out and say, hey, we're going to meet, that has been the key for us to be more successful.
Okay. So you're in the business, you've finished purchasing it after COVID, is that right?
Yeah, just last August. So
last August. How did you celebrate?
We had a nice little gathering. We toasted with some good whiskey and sat around and said, wow, we did it. Because we really did it as a team. We paid him off a year early.
Right.
That was from a lot of conservative saving, doing the right thing to be able to do that.
So it sounds like you paid it off rather rapidly then.
Yeah, it was. So I don't know if you remember the way this was originally structured.
Yeah.
Was going to be an earnout.
Right.
And towards the end, he said, no, company's doing better. I'd like to get this much money, X.
Right.
And you've got 5 years to pay it off. And we paid it off in 3.5 years.
Yep.
So it was a smaller amount because some of the earnout had already been done. And it was a good way of handling it just to finish everything off. So
that's great. That's great. Okay. So now as you're in leadership, what is the biggest change that you've made between your leadership and the previous leadership?
Letting go. And that's me personally, as well as Mark. Mark came up, baby boomer, threw it to where it was a very commanding control. He was hands off, but he still had his hands in everything. He wasn't a micromanager.
Right.
And that's kind of the way I was brought up too. Hey, I'm in charge. I need to tell everybody what to do. Well, with the team that I've got now, I'm able to step back. And the biggest thing as a leader that I've learned and changed is stepping back more and not having my hands in all the details all the time.
How do you do that practically though? Because again, your inclination, the way you've been brought up is to have your hands in everything. What do you do to discipline yourself, to bring yourself out of that mode of behavior?
So the best thing that could have happened to me was being on a couple of boards, and that takes me away. And so in California, there's Coalition for Adequate School Housing, CASH board. So I'm part of one of 11, and I have to go to Sacramento. We do technical trainings up and down the state. We do the conferences. So I'm speaking at conferences here and there. I'm gone a day, 2, 3, or 4 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Me being gone, I had to come up with ways of monitoring what's going on. I had to let go of the details, but then it also allowed my team to step up and say, hey, Doug's not going to be here. We need to make sure this stuff is handled. So me physically removing myself from the day-to-day operations was a catalyst to be able for both of us to both step up and then kind of step away.
So as someone is moving out of that sort of command and control or star player role, as the case may be, what kind of meeting rhythm have you set up with your direct reports so that you still feel confident that things are getting done and balls aren't getting dropped?
So each of the management team has their huddles, so they know what's going on. We finally moved the structure to where the way we have things structured is Cole's our vice president. And so I will meet with Cole. He meets with everybody on the field side. So he has all that information, can report out. Dawnette is our HR, and I will meet with her. And John is our CFO, and I will meet with him. So I have 3 direct reports that are now seeing the rest of the company. And it took us about 3 years to get the right people in the right seats on the right bus. And it's working very well now. But it took a while to get there on the structure.
Okay, so with Cole's handling the build side of the work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and Dawnette is more on the internal operations in terms of HR and stuff like that?
HR and office, yep.
Okay, and then obviously the CFO. What about like the get work? Who's in charge of get work, and do they report to you or to someone else?
So we have a very unique structure in that manner. We don't have business development. Joe, Cole, me, anybody can bring in work. Troy has been great. He's our director of operations.
Yep.
we are very hands-on with our clients. I don't like to go, hey, I'm going to sell you on this. Come on, let's just give us a project. We work with people and we will do things for free.
Right.
And that I'd rather sit across the table from somebody and develop a relationship than just promise. That doesn't work for me.
When you say do things for free, what does that mean?
So somebody may have, at a school district, may have something to say, hey, I've got these projects coming up. I don't even know how to put them together. And this may not be a district that we have worked with, or maybe we have. And we'll say, just give them some advice. Here's what I would do if I were you. Here's a structure that you could work through. We get a lot of private clients that want an estimate. Can you just give me an estimate of what this is going to cost? Sure, no problem. I can get you an estimate.
Yep.
So working together, I'm not paying a business development person. So I'm really investing my business development marketing in doing work instead of ads.
Yeah. Okay. One of the challenges that I've seen working with construction companies over the years is that you generally get two types of people in construction. One is the type of person who's kind of running at 100 miles an hour. They're willing to take on some risk. They're probably multitasking and not getting everything done as well as they could. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, you have people who are maybe more the engineering types, who are a little more slower paced, a little more methodical, but at the same time, they can be a little over analytical and not make decisions in a timely manner. Mm-hmm. How do you think a construction company can work with those types of people and get them to be maybe more effective and less, on the one hand, disruptive, and on the other hand, slow, for lack of a better word?
Slow from what the driven people are doing, right? Yeah. So one of the things we do at Mark Wilson Construction, and this took some developing by the whole team. We call it listen, plan, build. The general parameter behind listen, plan, build is listening is gathering information. And that could be from emails. It could be from the plans. It could be from talking to people. You never want to put a plan together until you've gathered some information. And I'll get back to your over analytical, because you can gather information way too long.
Yeah.
So then you put the plan together based on the actual information you've gathered. And then and only then do you build or take action.
Yeah.
It's also a loop, because once you take that first incremental step, you may find out, oh, shoot, I had no idea that was going to happen. Let's go back and gather some information. Let's change up the plan, and then we'll take the next step. Now, to answer your question, I'm very driven. I like jumping in and just getting stuff done. The listen, plan, build process slows me down because it's really funny, Eric, the way this has taken on a life of itself at the company. We have project administrators now in the middle of an owner's meeting, client's meeting, and this big problem comes up. They'll walk up to the board and they'll write, listen, plan, build. Guys, we're jumping into this too hard. Let's gather some information, make sure we're on the same page. And it really slows the meeting down. And maybe there's a lot of tension because of this issue. Everybody learns something from that list under listen that they may not have known. And it could change their perspective about how they're going to approach the problem. You could get some very tense clients. Hey, this is your problem, not my problem. But as they see the things go up, they realize they could have an impact on a solution. So it's really bringing the team together doing that. So as a driven person, it slows me down. But from an over analytical person, it also says, hey, at some point, this is all the best information we have right now. This is the best we have. So let's put a plan together based on that information and then go take the first step.
Right.
For that analytical person, we are going to come back around and we're going to analyze that again before we take the next step. So it's very, let's say, therapeutic, but it gives you a tool to use. Listen, plan, build is not a statement. It's not a mantra. It's a tool.
Yes.
And when you use it, it helps those who go a little bit slower to go a little bit faster, and the ones that are going too fast to take a breath and go through the process.
And it sounds like it lays the foundation for getting people to buy in by highlighting areas that they perhaps could begin to make a contribution in.
Yeah, people buy into the things they have a hand in.
Right.
That is a huge, good result of this project or process.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Doug. Just a quick shout out for my book, Construction Genius, effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice. I tell you, we have 45 5-star reviews on Amazon and 1 4-star review, but the average is 5 stars. And why is it 5 stars? Because if you're a construction leader, this book will be tremendously beneficial to you. It'll help you with your leadership, your strategy, your sales, and your marketing, just as the title promises. So go out to Amazon, buy a copy for you and every single leader in your organization. And if you purchase 10 or more copies, contact me directly, eric@constructiongenius.com. I will come into your office via Zoom and do a 1-hour question and answer session with your team, as well as a bonus leadership training. And that is all for just $199, $19.99 times 10. I would normally charge $3,500 for an hour of my time. And so that is a killer deal. Go out to Amazon, buy the book. I know you'll enjoy it. Now back to our conversation with Doug. So as far as gathering the information then in the listening phase, what are some effective techniques that you've found to be able to first understand the information I need to gather and then go get that information in an efficient way?
So 2 mindsets that you want to have as you're going through this process that help is to be curious, genuinely curious. Not, hey man, I've been doing this for 20 years. I already know what's going to happen, but all right, I'll listen to some people. You have to be genuinely curious that you may not know something. And I don't know if you've read Never Split the Difference.
I can say I've read most of it, I think.
Okay. So he got to a point where he said you want to find the black swan. And the story behind that is in Europe, before they started traveling across the water, they only knew that there were white swans. So all the scientists said, there's only white swans in the world, until they got to Australia and found that there were black swans.
Right.
So the name of his company is the Black Swan Group. Yep. And that book really hit me as far as the listening part. Even though I've been doing this for 35 years, I may be missing something. And I want to know what that is so we can have the most effective plan.
Let me ask you about that. In your experience, what is it that the older generation, folks, like that are our age, they're in leadership or they're in the owners of the company, is there a particular type of information that they tend to miss more often?
I would say yes. And it's an interesting question. Nobody's ever asked me that question before, but the thing that you've been doing all your life and you just know the way it is, the type of information I think people miss is other people's experiences. If you're not curious and you're not asking the questions, you're never going to know what they've experienced. And truly, like stories of, hey, on this job, this happened to me. Maybe we could apply that. Because you're so caught up in the data, you're not going back to that person's human experience that they had and how it made them feel and how they reacted to it, or thinking about what the client is thinking. So if I'm in a school district and we're trying to solve a problem, and that facilities manager has a very controlling board that wants to know a lot of information, so he's constantly asking us for information. Like, dude, let us build the job. We'll get it done. We don't have to tell you all this. Well, I don't understand the why behind his human experience and what he's dealing with on the other side that I don't see. So I think that's what a lot of people miss.
What about, for an older person, what about someone who comes with a perspective that is maybe influenced by new technology that the older person isn't familiar with? Does that have an impact on them not being able to see that information as much as perhaps a younger person could?
Sure. And I'm going to give you the downside of the technology too.
Yeah.
That is definitely a problem, even for me, because I'm an old guy. I'm going to be 57 in a week. So I would be considered an old guy compared to these young kids. So everything they do now is on a big screen. I still have to touch the paper. I want to flip the plans and go back and forth. Yeah. So yeah, the old guys, the technology, they have access to things. I'm sitting in a meeting asking a question. They're calling up on their computer. He said, you mean this detail, Doug? Wow, I'm still looking for the drawings. So I think there is a gap there. But what the younger folks don't realize right now is that the computer is just a tool. It is not something to sit behind all day.
Right.
You have to get outside. You have to see the problem. You have to interact. I'll ask people, hey, give them a call and see about this X, Y, and Z.
That's part of the listening process then, right?
Yes, it is. They will text them instead of calling them.
Yeah.
That personal connection is being missed a lot right now.
Okay, so let's go to the second step then.
Okay.
Let's assume that we've gathered the information. We have perhaps a variety of sources. We've confirmed the veracity of the information as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about the plan stage then.
So the plan, it could be one of two things. You put a plan together and say, you know what, I need to go out to the job site and verify the location of all this blocking.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan could involve gathering more information. The other side of that is putting a plan together knowing that you probably don't have all the information and you have to be okay with that. The plan has to be adaptable enough and not rigid to be able to construction. How many things are predictable in construction?
Right.
For release, right? I mean, it's not ever going to go as planned.
Yes.
So Mike Tyson quote.
Yeah.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yep, exactly.
So I put a plan together based with the basis of knowing that it's probably not going to go exactly like this. So let's not spend a whole bunch of time, but let's have a couple of contingencies.
Yep.
And that plan, you've got to have a plan A and a plan B. And then you actually, on the build, I don't know if you want to talk more about planning, but on the build side, it has to be incremental, iterative. You have to there's going to be many iterations of stepping forward, learning. That's why it's a loop.
Yeah. What do you think is at what levels of detail are you looking to get to in terms of the plan? Does it just depend on the particular issue that you're addressing?
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. One of the things that I discuss in the book is my buddy Eddie, and Eddie was a project administrator at the time. One of the things, I guess another result that Listen, Plan, Build does for you is when you are so frustrated. The story in the book is about an email we received from a client, and the client had a bunch of misunderstandings, and the team was upset. Why don't they understand? Why isn't this just working? Why don't they trust us? Well, there's information that needs to be done. So as we went through that email and pulled out all of our information of what we needed to respond to and what we needed to plan, we actually got into a lot of detail on that one because we realized we had to build knowledge back in the owner and confidence in them that we do know what was happening. So we had to have a very detailed plan of how we were going to address each one of these issues to get back to dead level and working with the owner instead of on opposite sides. So a lot of detail there. Now, on another instance that may be much higher level, and I'm trying to think of an example, you don't need as much detail. Hey, let's get out there and give that a shot. It's going to be more investigative. You're going to, once we get there, okay, now we know what it is. It's like digging into a wall to find out what's there before you design it.
Yeah. Or it could be like going to a conference to check out a particular niche of work just to see who's there and get a feel for what's going on.
Absolutely. This process can really be adjusted to the level of detail needed to move forward.
Okay. So then let's move to the build part of it then. We have to take action, and that's a good thing. You mentioned this idea of the loop. So I'm assuming that we're going to take action and then we're going to evaluate the response to the action, and we may need to listen again and plan again and then build again. Is that right?
So I have a real effective tool in the office to be able to explain this, and it's very simple. I stand a person up 10 feet away from a chair, and I say, go over and sit down in that chair. And they walk right over and sit down in the chair. Then I stand them up, bring them back, put a blindfold on them, and spin them around a couple of times. I say, go sit down in the chair. The first thing they do is they reach out, they walk slower. They're definitely not walking toward that chair as fast as they thought. They're touching the wall, and they go over, they touch the chair, and they finally sit down. That's the way I want people to build. Most of the things we do, we don't know for sure the end result or the things we're going to encounter along the way. But by having them blindfolded, they didn't just stand there and panic. They go, no, I didn't stand there and panic. I said, you took smaller, slower steps and you accomplished the goal. Not like when you can see the end result, but you did get there. That's what I want you to do in construction. I want you to take the small, slower steps, learn things, gather information, and get to your goal successfully. And it's a real eye-opener for the people in the room because it's something we did when we were kids, right? Blindfold in the dark and go find your way. And that's what we're doing in business now.
That's very interesting. I like that very much. How do you handle a situation where the listen, plan, build loop doesn't work, or at least it's perceived to have not worked? Like, we listened, we planned, we build, and it was just a total waste of time.
We fail, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it happens. And that's the power of the listen, plan, build. Everything about being a builder, and that's our mantra at MWC, be a builder in everything you do every day. Eric, I have failed so many times in my life, and major failures. The one thing my dad taught me is just to get up and keep going. And I learned that playing baseball in Little League. The failures are the best thing to have as long as you have a mindset of learning from them. If you don't have a mindset of learning from them, then yeah, it's the worst thing. But the failure is the first step in listening the next time.
What do you think is the contribution of people's tendency to be overly positive in their feedback to another person's inability to handle failure and constructive criticism?
Failure has become a bad word in our society.
Yeah.
And at the company, it was very difficult for us to overcome that hurdle. We still have superintendents that want to give us, oh, everything's fine. It's great, Doug. Thanks for coming out. Being curious, you find out that things aren't okay. The best way to cure that as a leader is to not jump them, to not say, why didn't you do this? How come you didn't do that? Do you know how bad this is for the company? Hey, there's a failure, not a problem. What can we do better next time? And once they hear that a few times, they realize, oh, I can bring up things that went wrong.
Right.
It's going to be accepted. We're going to learn from it. We're going to do it better next time. It's like paying college tuition, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Screwed something up. We got to pay for it. We learned something from it. We're going to do it different next time.
So there's that element of leadership, which you could say normalizes failure, not in a negative way, but as a learning opportunity. But yet there's still some people who they can't cope with failure. They don't do it well. They don't want the negative feedback. They just want positive feedback. What do you say to those types of people? They may even be talented, but they limit themselves to an extent.
They really do. And at MWC, we want to be a builder in everything we do every day. So we try to work with those folks extra and give them some scenarios to where they have those successes. We talk about the failures in a very, very good way. In a positive way. We've even had a couple of people come from other companies.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that experience of openness, and they absolutely love it. So when those new employees talk to the other employees we're struggling with, that gives them a new perspective. It's not just coming from top down. They really have been through it in a bad way, and they realize that talking about failure is good. Now, we have lost some people at the company because they couldn't be open and they couldn't talk about those failures. And they just need to find a position that works for them with that mindset. And there are positions that work for that mindset, but for us, that's not a place that, and it's sad to say, but that's not a place that it works out. We're a very open company.
It's interesting because that reminded me of what you said at the beginning of our discussion about how the senior leadership team was very open with each other in terms of struggles as you were going through the beginnings of COVID.
Yes, very much.
And so that tells me then that it's cascading. The idea then is cascading that cultural piece throughout the organization.
Mm-hmm. And just so everybody that's listening to this knows, this was not a simple process to get to a place where everybody could be open.
No.
We had some real struggles, some big conversations, some hard conversations, losing people. I think we're about 95% there right now.
Right.
And it is a joy having that in place, but it took us 5 years to get there. So don't give up.
I think that's important because a lot of times we define a cultural value that we want to instill in our organization, but then we get the pushback from the incumbent, so to speak, and then we withdraw from that instead of staying true to it and, suffering the difficulties associated with making that a real part of the organization.
One of the things that is a byproduct of this that is now coming up, a lot of the frustrations of our staff, because they understand, hey, we're going to be a builder, we're going to get along, we're not going to be litigious about things, we're not going to file claims, we're going to work through problems. The frustration coming from our staff now is we may get a subcontractor or an architect who could care less about being a builder. Pay me or I'm walking off the job. I'm not going to do this change order unless they don't want to work through it.
Right.
So our staff's coming to us now and saying, Doug, why are they being so mean? Why are they being so difficult to get through this problem? I don't want to deal with them anymore. Well, maybe you could have an impact on them and their mindset over time by showing consistency that we want to work through these things. And Eric, there have been some trades that have completely flipped on how they approach work with us, that we used to be at odds all the time. And they understand that we're honest about wanting to build a good relationship and build consensus and build knowledge for the most effective project possible. And now they're excited about it, but it takes time and consistency.
And I'm sure there's still some subs out there or owners who are not a fit. And so you have to acknowledge that at some point. In an owner's case, they pay you enough money for the pain, or in a subs case, I don't know what the subs case would be, but somehow you've got to be able to get the right people in the right positions, both internally and externally in your organization.
Yeah, the subs case is actually, they always get low and they get you jobs.
Yeah.
And so if you don't use them, you're not going to get the job. But there are people, Eric, that we will not work with because it is not worth the money. It is not worth our reputation.
Right.
Those are very few, but as a leader, you do have to walk the walk. And if you keep going back to this and putting your staff in harm's way, as it might be, they're not going to respect you. Oh, you're a builder, Doug, except when it's profitable for you.
Yeah.
So you have to actually walk the walk, and some people you just can't work with.
Yep. That's interesting. So we have this listen, plan, build process. And one of the things that you like to really emphasize is being a builder in everything you do. So tell us what you mean by that.
So being a builder in everything you do every day is aspirational. I want to make that crystal clear.
Yeah.
Nobody.
What's the distinction there? Aspirational as opposed to what?
As opposed to an actual place that you could be. So if I told you to be a builder in everything you do every day, you're going to have a bad day. You're going to have something went wrong and you just don't feel like coaching somebody that day. You're upset. You want to push back instead of walking alongside somebody. We're human beings. We get angry. We have emotions, and that's okay. Being a builder in everything you do every day is a thought process to get you back on track.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, the best way to work through problems is together. And sometimes you just don't feel like being together, right? Or being collaborative.
Yes.
But after you get through that, then you can get back on the path of being a builder. So one of the things that I wrote about in the book is part of the listen, plan, build process that came out afterwards is you have to let people vent. You can't just say, be a builder. Let them get their emotions out about the problem and then set that aside and work on the problem together. So if you're going to work on a problem itself and you're working on it with people, everybody has their own motivations. Everybody has their own wants and desires, whether it's profit or reputation or promotion or whatever.
Right.
If you can physically take that problem and set it in the center of the table and people aren't running to their corners, they're running to the problem, that's when you're more successful and effective. And that's where you're building consensus and you're building relationships, you're building trust for that team to work on that problem together rather than from their own perspective. And that's where you want to build with a cause bigger than yourself. If you're looking at that project as the cause, the kids that have to have butts in seats come August 8th, and you're all working to that cause instead of this little RFI and this problem we had over here.
Right.
People get on board, they have something to rally around.
It's interesting, though, because a lot of times we avoid emotional conversations because they are emotional. And perhaps if it's someone else being emotional and it doesn't affect me directly, it's easier. But what do you do, Doug, when the emotion that someone is expressing is directly impacting you? In other words, it may be about you or it may directly affect you. How do you manage your own emotions when others are being emotional?
Way better than I did 15 years ago.
A little bit cage, huh?
Yeah, one of the chapters in the book is about a huge failure where I was going to be removed from a project.
Right.
And I got that call and it was horrible. It was awful. I finally learned that people could have a problem with me and I know we'll be able to work that out at some point. But when you focus on the thing you're trying to do together rather than the emotions or the personal attacks.
Yeah.
I finally got to a place in my mind, and it took a lot of years, to where I can always say, it sounds like we definitely have a personal issue here. Right now, we want to focus on the project and get the project moving forward, and then we can sit down and talk about our differences. So refocus it. That's my mindset, to refocus it on something that means something to the team,
right,
than something between us.
So then do you circle back then, or do you wait for the other person to circle back? Because I could see in a lot of cases, someone might think, yeah, Doug's just saying that so that he doesn't have to deal with what I see as the main issue.
I will always circle back. I would rather have that. And for me, I don't like conflict at all.
Right.
I really don't. I would avoid conflict in a heartbeat. But I realize if I avoid that conflict, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse the more time that goes on.
Yes.
It may completely ruin that relationship. So to sit down and have that kind truth conversation early, that's what I have to put in my mind to overcome my own emotions.
Interesting. So you've mentioned it a couple of times. You have this a new book. It's called Build a Blueprint for Constructing Success in Leadership and Life. I think it's a great title, great subtitle. Tell us a little more about the book and then how people can get a copy of it.
So the book itself was about 2 years. I worked on the book, and I originally started it because I wanted to get my own thoughts together about how I wanted to lead the company. The basis of the book is my mentor, friend, still to this day, Tim Marsh. He was my old boss. And a lot of these things are his philosophies, but he never wrote them down. And I wanted to put it into words because we're living in a different world now with how people communicate and social media and everything else. So this started off as kind of a legacy thing for Tim, and it morphed into an actual process of listen, plan, build, and really wanted to put down what I believe and what the company believes. And so many of our clients and so many of our trade partners, they act in this way too. They just want to find the right thing, work together, do the right thing for the project. And it's been really successful over the last, my career.
That's right.
This book was a culmination of all of that. I tell a lot of stories about, like I said, failures, a lot of successes, and how building works throughout your life. And we already talked about being a builder and everything you do. It's not about construction. If you're going to build a good relationship, as it is on a building, you have to have a good foundation.
Yeah.
If you're just flying in trying to build a relationship and, quick, just so we can get something, that building's going to fall down. You're not going to have a good foundation, good structure. Yeah. That's what being a builder is, in my mind.
Excellent. And the book is available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback?
It is. If you type in Doug Reitz or type in build, it should come up. And I have to give a shout out to Ignite Press. They were our publisher.
Yep.
Everything that they did to walk me through, they were a true builder. My coach, Kathy Fyock, if anybody's looking to write a book, I would highly recommend getting a book coach. And I know, Eric, you've written a book, right? So,
yep.
For a couple. So
just one.
Just one. I thought you had two out. So just
No. Just one. It's like a wife. One's enough. I'm kidding. Maybe I'll have another book, but I won't have another wife.
Well, the other book that I was a part of is When Work Works. And it's an anthology book with 15 authors. So I wrote a little chapter on being a builder in that book as well. And that was a great experience. But you can go to Amazon and get it. It ended up being a bestseller on Amazon in 7 different categories. I was just humbled by that. I had no idea that would happen.
That's great.
And it's been a real good ride.
Awesome. So we'll have links in the show notes to both books.
Awesome.
And Doug, I really appreciate you coming on, your openness, sharing your wisdom with us. And I do wish you the best as you continue to grow the company.
It's always great to talk to you, Eric.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Doug here today. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to share it with other people who would benefit from his insights and wisdom. Go to the show notes and check out his books on Amazon. Build a Blueprint for Constructing Success in Leadership and Life is the one that he wrote, and the one that he contributed to is When Work Works, Cutting-Edge Solutions for the Contemporary Workplace. Check out both those books on Amazon, and feel free to give us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts so that Construction Genius can be seen across the interwebs. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.